Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us this Saturday afternoon. We're going to go through your questions and answer some questions today. Just a bit about me. So I'm originally from the US, but I've been in Singapore 20 years now. This is actually my third career. Like many of you, I started off and made a few careers, or you in the future maybe making some changes. I was engineering, and then I went and got an MBA. And then I switched to finance, mostly within technology companies for about 19 years. And then I transitioned into student services, career services about 7, 8 years ago. I was with Singapore Management University. Then I was with INSEAD based in Singapore. And I've been with ESSEC about 2 years now. And so I enjoy being in the school environment. It allows me to reach out to many corporate partners that we work with on a regular basis, but also to work directly with students. I'm a certified coach, so I love when I get a chance to do one-on-one and really talk about aspirations. It could be career search strategies. It could really be anything related to career questions that students may have. So I'm just really happy to be here this afternoon, and let's go ahead and kick it off, Sonia.
Great. So I think for today, we have prepared a few questions, and we are also open for all of you guys to submit your question if there's anything particularly you want to know more about, ESSEC and the career services. So let's start off with, the first question that I have prepared, or we have prepared, I think you guys are all interested in. So perhaps Larry, can you share a little bit about, the value of pursuing a specialized master from a career perspective? So I think a lot of the students today are probably considering, if they should do it or if they should wait. What is the benefit of joining a specialized master at this point, or at various point of their career?
Okay, yeah, sure. So when I look at the specialized master programs, there are a couple of reasons why to join from a career perspective. So one is, and I'll use some specific examples for each of these, but one is to make a shift or a slight shift in your direction. And so one example I'm going to use, which it's quite common, is someone that gets an engineering degree for a bachelor undergraduate degree. But they're interested in finance, for example. And so the typical route would be to go to a master in finance program. Typically coming from an engineering background, you have the numeracy skills required, but probably not, accounting, valuation, those types of things. And so it's a real nice way to make that step into the finance world. And it's quite common at ESSEC, and it's quite common at other schools to see that. At ESSEC, we see people coming from different backgrounds. They go through the program, 18 months, end up with some really nice jobs with big banks. Obviously, we have a strong French connection. So, BNP and Ardian and SocGen and those types of companies, but also, the North American banks and Asian banks, internships at UOB, for example. And so really making that shift is one reason to do a specialized master program. The other is to accelerate or even to target more. So let me use another example. Potentially somebody that got a BBA, so a Bachelor in Business Administration. Going through that, they realize that they really want to pursue marketing. And so the Master in Digital Marketing would be a nice way to target a specific area and a growth area. So again, we see that with students coming in. And it could even be that they have a marketing undergrad focus, but they know that digital is really one of the growth areas of the future. And so doing the MMD program at ESSEC is a way to accelerate that. To target that even more, we have such a strong connection with luxury. It's definitely part of the DNA of ESSEC. And so sometimes it's students that specifically want to look at the luxury industry as well. And our ties there obviously would be with companies like LVMH and with Richemont, where we do student projects with those types of companies. So I would say both a change in direction, but also targeting and acceleration would be a really good reason to do it. Before I end, let me answer. I think it was the final part of your question. Should you do it now or should you do it later? There's really no right or wrong answer. Obviously, we see students coming in right after their bachelor program, but we also see students that maybe work a year before they join the program. There's certainly pros and cons to that. I think now that we have COVID, we're seeing more students potentially that want to go directly out of bachelor because some of the job markets around the world are fairly weak. And so it's a really good way to be productive and make yourself even more marketable as we get through this crisis.
Right. Actually, interestingly, since COVID, we do get a much higher number of applications, last year. So it is definitely a trend. During economic downturn, people tend to, go back to school more or thinking about going back to school more. I think Larry have a good point that we do tend to see, students usually use a master's degree as a point to pivot their career. So going from generalist, a general degree to then get a specialized master's degree, or going from a specialized, like a more specialized bachelor to a more general degree. So, those are definitely interesting, or usually what we tend to see. So I think the second questions that we have prepared is for some of the students to pursue a postgraduate degree is definitely linked to the career progression. So when someone is looking for a change of industry, a job, and geographic location, the journey becomes somewhat, confusing, or so the consideration become difficult. So what would the advice you give when someone thinking about leveraging all these different factors when considering which one is the right program? So to conclude, to change of industry, job, or geographic location, how do we pick the right program?
Okay, sure. So really great question, because we being the coaching team, we talk a lot to students about the three dimensions. And so I would encourage all of you for the rest of your career, when you're looking to make a change, really break it down into geography, to job function, and to industry. And that's really the way to look at it. And with postgraduate degrees, yeah, it's quite common to change one dimension and even two dimensions. You can change three dimensions, never say never, but the probability gets to be a bit lower as well. And so it's really the right way to look at your next career step. I think when you're thinking about making any change, how does that play into which program do you pick, right? And so let me just talk a little bit about each. So geography, clearly when you go to a specific country or a location to do your program, you get experience, you understand what's happening in that country more. For example, whether it's France or Morocco or Singapore for ESSEC's case. You build networks, which is really important when you're job searching. In fact, I would say networking is probably the top skill set to have when you're hunting for a job, because there are many jobs out there that don't get posted, and so networking is really a way to get in the door, and many times. And let me just give a plug to our ESSEC alumni, and that we have a very strong support from our alumni. And so we always encourage students to start networking with the alumni once they join the school as well, right? So geography, think about where you want to go to school, because potentially it has an impact on where you'll work after the program. Clearly, it's gotten more difficult in most countries around the world because of the crisis. But this whole thing with freedom of employment is sort of a pendulum over time. So, I think realize that it is a bit more difficult with nationalism around employment, whether it's North America, Australia, Singapore, Europe. But there are still opportunities for students that go to any geography. So think about where you want to go. Industry. So again, some of the more generalist, general types of programs, so like Master in Management, there's still flexibility within those programs to really look at a variety of industries, for example. But finance, obviously, you would most likely look at financial services, or if you do fintech, potentially you would look at a company that would be more in the startup space, maybe in financial solutions as well. So, you know, the program can tie into which program you pick as well. I mentioned luxury before. Obviously, digital marketing is desirable within all industries nowadays. But still, you know, sometimes you pick a combination of school and degree program because you're targeting a specific industry as well. Finally, functional area. So again, I think it ties a little bit back to what I said about industry as well, in that a more general program like a Master in Management, it could be marketing, operations, human resources. Same with MBAs. I know we're not talking about MBAs, but that would be the same for MBAs as well. Where some of the other more specialized programs, you're not walking yourself in, but you are more focused in a specific functional area when you pick those programs. Let me talk a little bit about what we do with students when they join the programs, because at the end of the day, what you want to do is about you. And so we have different assessment tools that we will use with students to really talk about skills, motivators, and interests. And what are your skills, motivators, and interests? And then how does that map into what you think you would like to do next as well? And now what you want to do next, the skills, motivators, and interests will tie, you know, that's another dimension that you would layer into location, industry, and functional area as well. And so it's, you know, it's fairly complicated, but break it down into the building blocks, and then usually which program will drop out of that analysis of what you'd like to do next. One thing that I'd like to point out is, you know, Sonia and even the career services are available to answer more specific questions on an individual basis, because sometimes when you get to these types of questions, it is very individual as to what you'd like to do next, and tying that back to who you are.
Great, thanks, Larry. Because we're on this topic, perhaps maybe can you tell us a little bit about what is a typical career service journey like that the ESSEC students go through when they enter, you know, from the orientation week to, you know, when they complete the program and start their internship. So for all the ESSEC master programs, actually an internship is part of the requirement. So for all of you, you know, if you're considering doing the program, generally it's 8 to 9 months of full-time courses. And then afterwards, students will have a 6 months internship before they officially graduate, or they can start, you know, working full-time. So what kind of experience or journey that students will go through when they enter the program? Perhaps we can use, for example, Master in Finance as an example, because I know these guys will they go through the program started in end of August, and the first week already they go through a very intensive, very heavy career orientation, you know, as their program orientation. So perhaps Larry can walk us through a little bit about, shine some light on how it is that it may be different from other university, like how much more career oriented that, you know, this program is designed to prepare the students for the job market.
Yeah, sure. So great, you know, great question. And it's very timely because we're with our classes starting, our program starting, as Sonia mentioned, the Master in Finance in August, and we have other programs starting this week. We're right in the middle of it right now. And so the typical journey is introduction to the team, so myself and the team, walking through who we are, what we do, but then we immediately jump in and start with workshops. And again, so it could be more general around what is the landscape in a particular industry, or what is the landscape within, say, financial services for the Master in Finance. And then working with students on their aspirations. So these could be assessment tools, or it could be one-on-one coaching. And again, even if you think of something like finance, right, you could do asset management, you could do trading, you could do fintech. And so the subcategories, and really understand what are the aspirations, where do you want to go? And then really working on workshops that are the tactical tools. And so it could be CV writing, it could be interview skills. Again, we do networking workshops very early in the program because it's very important, personal branding. And so really fine tune the tools that you need to basically do a internship search. Then we also will do training on internship search strategies. And this could be anything from, again, networking, which I mentioned previously, coffee chats, how do you conduct a coffee chat, different portals, different tools that are out there to look for internships, including our ESSEC Career Center. We have our own job portal, internship portal. And so search strategies as well. And then we are there all the way through the journey with one-on-one coaching anytime that there's questions around that. How are we different? I think a lot of the programs that we do, the workshops, are quite similar across different schools. The one thing I'll say about ESSEC, especially ESSEC Asia Pacific, is that because we're a bit of a smaller school, it's very intimate. And so we work very closely with each of the students. They have unlimited access to the coach to work with us anytime they have a question. And again, nothing against the other schools, but sometimes they have to limit the amount of interaction because of the volume of students that they have. I think one thing that I love the most about ESSEC is that once the students, it starts to have a family feel to it, because we bump into them on a daily basis in the lobby, and it's an ongoing conversation throughout the year working with them on their internship search.
Right. So having said that, actually each of the program will have a specific career coach that is designed or dedicated for that program. So students in that program will have the same contact person to reach out to and to schedule their appointment whenever they need for mock interviews or for whatever counseling session that they need. So
yeah,
just to put it out there. So the next question is, what are the general thoughts on the skill sets that students should have in this post-COVID, job market? At the moment, it's definitely difficult for a lot of the, not just students, for everybody also when looking for a new job or to change job. So what type of advice you would give to the students in this current situation or this current time?
Yeah, so I guess we're 5 to 6 months into this now, and it's very dynamic, right? But let me give you my thoughts around this. I promise this is the last time I'm going to mention networking, but it's really critical here, because there was just an article in the Singapore newspaper, I think a week ago or a week and a half ago, that the job portals are seeing 30% less postings. And I think it's 30-40% increase in applicants for every job that gets posted. And kind of the general message was that it's very crowded when you look in applying on job portals. Clearly, everything that we put on our ESSEC job portal, we've talked directly with the hiring manager. They're specifically looking for our students. But if you're looking out at, let's say, LinkedIn, for example, it's very, very crowded right now. And so reaching out to somebody and having lunch or coffee with an alumni and having a conversation and exploring, is it the right company? Is it interesting? But then also through that relationship, maybe there's an opportunity to do a project, a traineeship, an internship, and better understand what the employment options are with that. So networking is really important right now, even more so within the COVID situation right now. I think the other is, a lot of digital disruption, which I know is obvious, and clearly ESSEC is playing in that space like a lot of other schools, but a strong focus on sustainability and digital skill sets and digital disruption and entrepreneurship, for example. And so obviously data skills are hot right now, and the companies that are still staffing up tend to be more the big tech types of companies, and it could be online retailing, whether it's Shopee's and Lazadas and those types of companies, or so definitely digital and understanding digital disruption, digital marketing, all of those are hot right now as well. So skill sets with combining general business with a bit of it, and you don't have to be a programmer. Let's be realistic about it. But having an understanding of digital disruption and speaking a little bit of the language, combining that with your business acumen, is a good way to get your foot in the door and have the initial conversations as well. And so, I mean, those would be my top recommendations. I think. Language skills are always important, and that's one thing that's nice about ESSEC, a strong focus on languages as well. But combinations of languages is important, because that will give you potentially a unique selling proposition as well when you combine it with business and a bit of the tech lingo as well. So it's really, at the end of the day, it's about finding what is your unique selling proposition making into this particular market. It's more difficult, to be honest with you, but we still see students getting really great internships in Singapore and in Europe and in other countries as well.
So now, because you bring up, unique selling points. So what do you say, what would you say if someone chooses ESSEC over, let's say, a local university? What type of unique selling point that will add to their profile in this, scenario? Would you say is the strength of choosing a European business school in Singapore, for example? So what type of additional value does it add to a profile from the employer standpoint, or just in general? What would you normally coach our students in positioning their profile?
Yeah, it is a great question. Having been at a few other schools in Singapore as well, and I think a bit of it is in our philosophy, the learning by doing, and so being very hands-on, very practical approach to the curriculum. I think the French roots, and I talk a lot about this, obviously, is it's very well known in Europe, and so we're broadening the employer base a lot as people in Asia get to know ESSEC a lot more than they did maybe 10 years ago. But it's a natural advantage when you approach somebody like, say, an LVMH or Societe Generale, or because immediately, first of all, there'll be alumni there, and then also they will know the quality of ESSEC. But the one thing that I want to point the most to is, I think, sort of the overall international flavor of the school, because it is a European school, and now it's attracting a lot of students from Southeast Asia and from broader Asia as well. And so it tends to be a very international program. And I think when you go and you pitch yourself to employers, they will see that the international flavor that you've picked up as part of the ESSEC programs as well. And so again, it's a bit unique in this market, and I think it plays really well into certain segments of the employer base. Again, the reputation of the school across Singapore and across Asia is a strong focus, and it's growing year after year.
Right. So, okay. So those are the questions that I have prepared, ahead of time. But let's answer some of the questions that the attendees have submitted on Zoom. So let's see. It's bicontinental mandatory requirement. Okay, so ESSEC has 2 campuses, Singapore, Paris, for the English speaking program. Let's say for all the master degree that is taught in English, most of them are available in both locations. Usually it's not a mandatory requirement. It depends on what the student wants. So if you would like to explore or to experience living in both continents, of course, you will have that option. So for example, you can start the program in Singapore for a few months and then you can rotate. If you do that, your student visa will allow the students to work and have the legal right to actually work without work visa. So that's also a very good advantage for international students when you become an international student to get into the company without a sponsorship. So I think, Larry probably would agree on maximizing the advantage of having that work permit while you can. Okay. How does ESSEC graduate fare in the industry currently? Oh, perhaps maybe, I don't know if Larry has the statistic, but maybe just from top of your head, how is the current students doing, the current batch who is just completed their study and who are, most of them, I think already, started their internship. So are they doing okay? Of course, I'm sure it's slightly more difficult comparing to previous year, but how are they doing? The current, the batch that started last year.
Yeah, so it's a great question. And it, if you think about when it really hit, it was March, April, May, right? Which is usually the prime season for finding internships. And so, yeah, it was definitely difficult. I actually don't have the stats off the top of my head because it's still evolving right now. We still have some students that are getting internships. We know it's late, but we're providing flexibility because obviously it's the right thing to do. But it's 60, 70%. It depends on the program, which given everything that's happened, is quite good around that. So I think one thing that happened though is, a lot of students ended up back in their home market purely because of COVID, and so then they ended up getting internship in their home market. On a normal year, we would have more students that obviously would try to get a job maybe out of their home market, but COVID made it more difficult because of travel restrictions. And so I would say, all things considered, it actually did work out well. One thing that I haven't talked about, and I do want to mention it here though, is because we have a lot of entrepreneurs, and not only from ESSEC, but in general, European entrepreneurs that are in Asia. And they have continued, a lot of them have continued to bring on interns during the crisis. And if you think maybe they're probably in some of the technology spaces that are disrupting or that are very important right now. So we still see hiring and internships around that as well. And I just wanted to point that out. That's one area where we've seen continued support, especially from our ESSEC alumni bringing in interns into their companies as well. So, at some point later, we can give more detailed specifics around each of the programs about internship percentages. I would say it's not representative of a normal year for obvious reasons.
Yeah, I'm sure. And if there's a particular program that you're interested, do drop me a message. I do have those, statistic, and they are available on the brochure. So if you download brochure, you'll be able to see, particularly what roles or what functions the students are getting placement into. So the next question is, touching on Larry's example on an engineering degree to a master in finance, what level of jobs will these type of candidates be eligible to? And how does that compare to someone who is already in a finance role since graduation from bachelor's? Okay, so I think the question is, how do we compare someone who is using the master degree as a switch to someone who study finance in this example and just start a job? So Larry, would you like
to? So I mean, it's a great question, and there's really no one answer, because to some extent it depends a bit on which company you're talking about, associate, senior associate, for example, right? And so some students will go into the structured summer internship programs in financial services. And many times they will be in the same cohort as somebody coming out of a finance degree that's a bachelor finance degree as well. However, many students also will end up doing off-cycle internships, which tend to be more flexibility, and so there's the possibility that they will end up one step above what a bachelor in finance would get. So it kind of depends. It also is because Master in Finance, some have zero work experience except for maybe an internship. Some may have a year or maybe even a year plus work experience as well. And so when you get into off cycle and you start looking at the different types of internships that are available, companies will understand if you have 1 year experience already. You know, that obviously you have seniority, you have experience that a fresh grad wouldn't have as well. So it really is a case by case basis. I will say though, if you go into the structured summer programs within financial services, most likely you will be in there with the bachelor graduates as well.